Good evening, everybody. Keith Angle here for TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. Sorry for the little bit of a delay there. Sometimes it's hard. I'm coming off another show guesting and trying to get this show started. But we're here, and now we've got about an hour and a half time to enjoy. Welcome to everybody watching us tonight on TGI Sports Talk, of course, and on Northeast Streaming Sports. By the way, TGI Sports Talk, you can be watching us anytime now or later after the show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at some point. Also, Let's Talk Sports. You can watch us on their YouTube channel. And they've got a lot of great content, a lot of great stuff to watch. Shows every night of the week, all day and all night long. Northeast Streaming Sports, which we can watch on Facebook, YouTube, and this show will replay on their Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel at 9 a.m. Saturday, just before the games get started. So an alternative to the ESPNs of the world, if you will. I'm not as old as Lee Corso. I just seem like it. And also, listen, a quick shout out to Ralph Wilson. And by the way, before I go there, get out there and download that Roku app for Northeast Streaming Sports. Great content there, day in, day out. Great stuff every day of the week, as we said with Let's Talk Sports. Same thing with Northeast Streaming Sports. And DDH, thumbs up, by the way. And then a quick shout out to Ralph Williams from RW Media. Ralph does some great stuff over there. And in particular, we like to plug the Sports Corner, which we try to share when we see it to share. It's every Tuesday. I thought at 5:30, but I think I saw it start at 5 o'clock here this past Tuesday. So if I've got the time wrong, I'll check that out and reiterate for you. But that's on WBBP, 12:30 a.m., 99.3 FM in Pittsburgh. You get lots of Pittsburgh sports and nationwide sports. And if you watch Ralph's stuff, man, he even talks outside of the world of sports. So, excuse me. Lots going on. So happy Thanksgiving Eve to everybody. Not sure how big the crowd will be comment-wise tonight, but we hope we're there because we got a lot to talk about, a lot to unravel. We got a new college football poll. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about from last week in college football. Week 12, Georgia continues to roll and get better. FSU, Florida State wins but loses at the same time with Jordan Travis going out and getting jumped by Washington in the poll. This is a bad sign for FSU. If they win out, they may be in trouble. We'll see what happens. Bama really on a bye against Chattanooga, but playing well. Washington survives a tough one in Oregon, which Oregon will play this weekend to try to secure a place in the Pac-12 championship. We'll look at all the conference championship matchups, the ones that are locked in, as well as the ones that are still up for grabs, at least the one we can look at. I mean, you look at the Big 12, I think everybody's still alive that's 5-3 and better, and it's impossible to unravel their tiebreakers, so we'll have to wait for some help on that. Texas, in my mind, keeps getting weaker. Their resume gets weaker every week as they struggle with teams they probably shouldn't, and some of the teams they've beat have hurt their chances as well. Michigan and OSU both have warm-ups for their big matchup this weekend, the Big Ten, which will likely decide the Big Ten champion because Iowa should not have a chance against either one of these teams. We'll talk a little more about the Michigan situation as well. Michigan just scrapes by, and we'll look at all the top 25s in a second. Ohio State rolled pretty good. And we'll look at some of the rest of the scores as well. You know, big news, as I said, probably the biggest news out of last week in my mind. You didn't have changes. Nobody in the top 8 lost for I think since the poll got started, college football playoff poll got started, none of the 8 teams have lost. Top 8. Now you got a little bit of movement because Washington goes by FSU. But is it fair that the FSU loses their spot right now? They went from 4 to 5 because their quarterback went down. The committee says that's not the reason. I'm having a hard time buying it. Now, I understand Washington's probably got the better resume. And that may settle itself anyway. But right now, Oregon, I could see a one-loss Oregon Pac-12 champion finish ahead of an FSU undefeated ACC team. This committee set it up for that to happen. And I don't think that's fair if they were to go undefeated. Now, they've got a tough road. I mean, while Florida's not that good this year or the last few years, it's still a rivalry game, and that'll be tough to overcome. Some other news around the world of college football. Sorry, I read something made me laugh. James Madison has dropped. They were gonna take legal action against the NCAA for this stupid rule that's not allowing them to participate in the postseason. And they hurt their own. I didn't hurt their cause last week, but they lost after making a petition to the NCAA and having it denied. They lost to Appalachian State at home last week. Not a good loss for James Madison, but it doesn't change the fact that this rule needs to change. It's just, it exists for what reason? I have no idea. I mean, how many teams are moving up a level and have an advantage over anybody, and they should be disallowed from participating in league championship games and bowl games, and certainly playoff consideration. Not that James Madison would be considered for the playoff slots, but they were before last week in play for the New Year's Day bowl game for the group of five, which, by the way, we'll get into a little bit. There's a good race going on there. Liberty has moved into the race for that. They're still undefeated. Tulane with one loss. And you've got SMU, I think, still alive. You still got probably Texas San Antonio still alive for that group of five slot. So lots to unravel. We'll talk. And again, coming up this week, the big games, we'll get into those. And obviously, we know the biggest game is going to be Ohio State and Michigan. And speaking of that, welcome in Ed from Columbus. Heard Michigan asked the president for a pardon for Jim Harbaugh, but the White House pardons chickens, but not ones that cheat. Oh, Jim is really Jim. Jim, you've contributed a lot to the shows recently, and I do appreciate that. And welcome in tonight. We'll be talking a lot about that game coming up, and a lot about Michigan, a lot about Ohio State. I mean, look at, again, just to touch on the Michigan thing real quick again off the top. I don't condone cheating, but Ed, your own school was helping Purdue with Michigan signals in the Big Ten championship game last year, according to an SI article. And I'm not naive enough, and I don't think you are, to think that everybody's not out there doing something to get an edge. Now, did Michigan take it a step further, similar to other teams that have been caught? I firmly believe if you want to catch any team doing this type of thing, and all you need to know is that the NCAA uses terms to try to throw you off, throw everybody off. If you're doing this, you're stealing signals. And if you're doing this, you're decoding signals, which is okay. Come on. And by the way, put headsets in the helmets and it wouldn't matter. Let's see. Some news at Michigan State. The Michigan State AD had looked at ways to part ways with Mel Tucker before the season started. So Mel Tucker may be the stupidest coach in the history of the NCAA. He had a golden parachute. They couldn't fire him without it. Cost him $70, $80 million. Very similar to Jimbo Fisher, who Texas A&M spent 2 years trying to dig up stuff on Jimbo to fire him for cause and couldn't find anything. He gives Michigan State the perfect reason to fire him for cause. I mean, Mel, you can't be any stupider than you were. Deion talks about the fact that they will not be out buying players this year, so we'll see how that holds true. But again, to me, the big story this week is going to be FSU And these next couple of weeks, how this final poll hashes out is going to be interesting. A lot of it will take care of itself. A lot of it is still open to a great deal of debate. And the FSU situation with Jordan Travis going out has opened it up to even more debate, because there's a school of thought that you can devalue a team, undefeated or not, because of an injury. And I just do not think that's really cool. What do you got for me, Ed? Ed believes all teams cheat. Agreed. But once you get caught, don't say the rules are stupid. Golden rules. The golden rule is don't get caught. I agree. I didn't say the rules were stupid. Again, I will say that the fact that NCAA coaching staffs are holding up pictures of animals, I won't say giraffes, John DeLong, if you're listening, and not being able to transmit signals into a quarterback's headset is just stupid. And we talked about it a little bit Sunday in the stream of consciousness that, money should not be the reason this isn't happening. High school teams do it. So anyway, let's look at last week's scoreboard real quick and put up your comments. We're going to be talking about what, the games that really mattered last week. And I will look at some other games of interest, but Louisville, who technically probably there's 8 teams alive, 9 if you want to count Louisville. Louisville would need all kinds of help to even be considered. Now, they would be in a 12-team playoff if that were to start this year, and we'll take a little bit about a look at that. Notre Dame rolls over Wake Forest, won't matter. Maybe Notre Dame can still secure some kind of New Year's Day bowl game because, the name does generate fans showing up and people watching. Georgia continues to get better and better. Carson Beck with another nice game, 3 touchdowns, 289 yards. They just roll on the road after a slow start, a bit of a slow start. They fell behind Tennessee 7-0. Carson Beck and Georgia roll. They're getting better every week. We keep saying it, as does Bama, and they're set. And we'll go through the conference championship games here in a little bit. Ohio State, Ed from Columbus, we just mentioned, they roll. At least they play a real team this week, unlike some of the SEC teams, which I never understand this bye week they want to give themselves, including FSU, by the way, from the ACC. They played Northern Alabama and lose their quarterback. So kind of a double whammy there. But Ohio State rolls over, not, a middle-of-the-road Minnesota team, but that's a good win for them. McCord efficient. Not much of a game out of Marvin Harrison Jr. I really thought a couple of big weeks to end the season, including a big game against Michigan this Saturday in front of a national TV audience, the whole country, literally, could give him a chance to jump at least into the final. And he still may have a chance to get to the final 3 that show up to New York for the Heisman. Marvin Harrison, to my mind, is the best football player in the country. You take all these quarterbacks, I still think he's the best player. Michigan has a bit of a tough go against Maryland. Maryland comes back in this game late. It was 29-24 before a safety late in the game. Maybe looking ahead to Ohio State a little bit. Maybe all the stuff is starting to catch up with him. Harbaugh accepted his suspension. Still up in the air whether he'll be able to coach in the postseason. But they get the win, and they set up this big game, obviously, with Ohio State this weekend. Florida State, we mentioned 58-13 after Jordan Travis goes down, and a Rodemaker, who's a 5th-year senior, I believe, goes for 217 and 2 touchdowns. Washington wasn't a pretty game, and I'll get to your comments in a second, Ed, if you guys want to keep posting comments, I'll get to them. Washington didn't play a pretty game. Michael Penix didn't play a pretty game. And has fallen probably, I would say Bo Nix is a clear favorite right now. Maybe Daniels is second. And I'm going to talk about him a little bit in a second because I think what went on last week is a bit of a travesty with Daniels. But they hold on to win 22-20. They don't score a point in the second half. Their defense had some big stops. Oregon State's a good football team. Corvallis, a tough place to play. The weather was bad. they get by a really good team, and now Oregon's got to do the same this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. The Heisman winner will be whoever wins between Nix and Penix Jr. I thought that for sure going into this Oregon State game for Washington last week, Ed, but Penix really threw a stinker up there in my mind last week. I mean, he does get the win, and I do think they're the best two players, and they're playing for something where, Daniels is not. And I don't like what went on in that LSU game. I don't necessarily have a problem with teams blowing other teams out, but LSU is playing. Who the hell were they playing in this game? Again, they're playing Georgia State, and they leave Daniels out there the entire game, let him throw 6 touchdowns. Now, he had a great game the week before in a league game, which I'm okay with. If you can have a great game within the context of a really good football game, that's great. I don't think it helps this guy's – it should help this guy's Heisman opportunity by going out there and just laying it into Georgia State. So I'll be hearing from John DeLon about what a great game Daniels had again after he set a record the week before rushing and throwing the football, which I gave him credit for. But this one I will not give him credit for because he shouldn't have been out there playing that entire game. Now, I understand. I always say it's your job to stop me, not mine. But I think this is a bit of a travesty the way Brian Kelly and LSU went about this. But again, I guess what I'm saying could be considered a bit hypocritical because of the way I feel about blowouts in general. I don't like the way they went about this. And again, no matter who wins, I think your guy is the best player in the country. Yeah, listen, SEC schedule. What you know? What I don't have a problem with these guys playing these teams. Everybody plays a cupcake. Ohio State's going to play a cupcake, but they don't play them in week 12. And I never like this. Playing them late when things are like the Heisman getting decided and whatnot. I don't like it. Anyway, going through the rest of the scoreboard a bit. Oregon rolls again, some style points for them. Bo Nix. Again, I guess we could say the same thing here, I guess. If I'm going to be critical of Daniels, I could be critical of Nix. But to me, Nix is playing on a better team. Nix has played against better competition, or beat better competition, if you will, other than Washington. I think Nix is the front runner. I do think Daniels is probably second and Penix is third. Harrison is probably fourth. Oregon rolls. Oregon's got Oregon State this week in a huge rivalry game that will not be played after this year because of the realignment. So that game will determine the outcome of the Pac-12 championship game matchup. Because if Oregon should lose, Arizona wins against a weak Arizona State team, which Oregon just beat up on them. Arizona's as hot as anybody in the Pac-12. Arizona would play in the championship game. And Jed Finch is doing a great, great job there. Texas kind of squeaks by, again, a mediocre Iowa State team on the road. They win by 10, but, the worst, as the Big 10 or Big 12 keeps, all coming to the middle, it makes Texas's one-loss record because their loss to Oklahoma doesn't look as good with Oklahoma having lost 2 games now in conference. So Texas is going to have a hard time when it starts matching up with some of these other one-loss teams, if it comes to that. Alabama, as we said, rolls against Chattanooga. Missouri beats Florida 33-31. Florida not – listen, Billy Napier's in trouble at Florida. They've got their schedule next year is one of the toughest probably ever in the history of college football. And they may be looking to make a change here. And I wouldn't know if I want that job. But Missouri playing great football. We'll talk more about them here in a second. Penn State rolls over Rutgers 27-6. Of course, Penn State rolls. It's not Ohio State or Michigan. Ole Miss rolls again. They're also on a bye, 35-3 over UL Monroe. BYU loses to Oklahoma 31-24 at home. LSU we talked about. Iowa quietly 9-2 wins the West of the Big Ten, but can't score points. 15 points, a safety, and a touchdown and 2 field goals. I guess they should be happy they got a touchdown. This team will get rolled by Ohio State. And I'm going to say Ohio State beats Michigan Saturday, by the way. A little preamble there. Arizona rolls over a good Utah team, 42-18. The news out of Utah this week is Cam rising. And Kenny Gifford has brought this up several times that there's too many 25 and 26-year-olds playing in NCAA football specifically, sports in general. And Cam Rising is coming back to Utah for his 7th season. Kind of put a cap on this stuff, man. They may keep coming back because they make more money. Clemson continues to bounce back after Dabo Sweeney's meltdown a couple of weeks ago. They win 31-20 over North Carolina, whose season is falling apart. I wonder if Mac Jones might just walk away. Kansas State beats Kansas 31-27. Kansas State and half of the Big 12 still alive for the Big 12 championship game. That one's hard to unravel. Oklahoma State bounces back from a horrible loss the week before, which not only hurt them, but hurt Texas's resume, if they should get into that comparison. If they win this week and Texas wins, they're both in the championship game of the Big 12, though. Tulane finally has a decent victory after some close calls against some not so good teams. They're 24-8. They still are in the driver's seat right now for that New Year's Day berth for the group of 5. What do you got here, Ed? Shout out to those nerds from North. Listen, I've talked about this a lot. Coach Braun gets the interim coach gets the full-time gig, and he should, because they've done a great job. I thought this was going to be a 1-2-win season for this team with everything going on there, the turmoil, with the harassment allegations, the hazing, and all this other stuff that was going on under the watchful eye of Pat Fitzgerald. They've done a great job this year. They're over 500. They're bowl eligible, and congratulations to them. I think it is, as you said, a great season under their young coach after this whole debacle they've been through. So, excuse me. Boy, sorry I wasn't able to get to the cough button there. Still got the cough after the COVID. Listen, I got sick like 6 weeks ago. Ooh, it's nothing to fool around with. So that's a look at that. And let's take a quick look at the after we finished up last week. Let me look real quick at any other games of interest. I do like to go through these because I like to give the military scores and whatnot. So let's go through the rest of FBS here real quick. Obviously, I know I don't know if it was you I talked about it or whatnot, and we'll get some great games. We had some good games already this week. The MAC on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, a lot of fun games and some good football and some underrated football teams. And I believe the MAC championship game is already set with Toledo, and we're going to go through the conferences here in a second. With Toledo scheduled to play, I believe, Miami of Ohio. We'll see if I'm right there or not. UTSA 49-21 over South Florida. Bad start for UTSA out of conference. UTSA, SMU, and Tulane all 7-0 in the AAC. All undefeated, very close race. UTSA really good. Watch Jeff Traylor and that Texas A&M job. Dan Campbell and Traylor, watch out. They could be the 2 leading candidates in my mind. Louisville, as we've talked about, they just get by Miami. Miami played a gamely last week. Van Dyke played well, didn't turn the ball over. Miami almost pulls this out, ties it at the end on a Hail Mary that comes up just short of the end zone. We talked about Notre Dame. I think I already talked about Louisville. I don't know why I'm talking about them again. Let's get past here. Get past here. Army comes. Listen, Army's now one game away from being bowl eligible after being off to not a great start, very poor start. Jeff Monken's got an extension. They've changed the offense there. They throw the football a whole lot more than they ever have. They're not just running the wishbone and whatnot. 28-21 over a good Coastal Carolina team down at West Point. So a good win for Jeff Monken, one of my favorite coaches. Michigan State gets a win over Indiana. Watch for Tom Allen to be getting fired at Indiana here very shortly. Mississippi State, one game away from being bowl eligible as well, even though they fired their coach here last week. Be interesting to see what happens with that search. As you talked about, Ed, Northwestern, 23-15 over Purdue. They're in a bowl. Texas A&M, after firing Jimbo, wins over Abilene Christian. Thank God they're good. The Christians were thrown to the Lions again. Bad line, I know, but 38-10. UConn gets a win over Sacred Heart. Jim Mora, tough year after really turned that program around last year. Navy, also a win away from being bowl eligible. 10-0 over East Carolina, who's not very good. A good history at East Carolina, but things have gone sideways there. SMU edges a good Memphis team, 38-34 on the road, as I said, to remain 7-0 in the American Conference. Liberty stays undefeated under their new coach, Jamie Chadwell. Watch out for him leaving after a year. 49-25, still in play for that New Year's Day Bowl shot. The Cotton Bowl, I believe, is where that bowl that slot goes. What else we got here? Not really interested. We talked about Appalachian State going on the road and beating James Madison, who'd had a 13-game win streak broken. And by the way, Georgia, 28 straight wins this week with their win this week. Didn't throw that in there. Also set an SEC record, I believe, with their 27th win in a row in the SEC. Wyoming beats Hawaii. West Virginia somehow still alive, 42-21 over Cincinnati in the Big 12. Still alive for the Pac-12 or the Big 12 championship game, excuse me. Hard to remember where these teams play these days. Duke, things falling apart quickly for Mike Elko's team without their great quarterback in Leonard. They lose 30-27. Things get, let's see. UCLA with a nice win over USC. USC just imploded here, lost 4 in a row, I believe, or 4 of their last 5. Lincoln Riley has got to just take a hard look at what's going on here in this program because things are not getting good. Not a great way for Caleb Williams to play his last game at home, most likely. And I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan as far as the next level. Great college quarterback. Not sure what we're going to see in the next level. I've compared him many times to RG3, and I think you might see that type of result. North Carolina State's have a good season, 35-28 over Virginia Tech. TCU rebounds to 40 with a 42-17 win over a bad Baylor team. Air Force loses their 3rd in a row. I've been hyping up Air Force all year, and Coach Calhoun all year. They get to 8-0. They really had a great chance of going undefeated in the Mountain West. They had a great chance to grab this New Year's Day bowl game, and they've lost 3 in a row to probably take themselves out of any consideration there. But they still are in play for the Mountain West championship game. Auburn, who gets their shot to be a giant killer and beat Auburn this week, they lose to a good New Mexico State team, 31-10. UCF loses to Texas Tech, who will play Texas this weekend. Cal beats Stanford in the game. No band on the field. Boise State fires their coach, and they win 45-10. Still in play for the Mountain West championship game. Arkansas has decided to keep Coach Sam Pittman after an up and down season. They're only 4-7, probably not going to make a bowl game, but they did decide to keep Coach Pittman, which the players were all happy about. Carolina beats Kentucky. They can still get to bowl eligibility this week with a win. Nebraska still bowl eligible. That would be, I still think that'd be a good accomplishment for this program in year one of Matt Rule's, the Matt Rule era, but they lose to Wisconsin last week. Syracuse loses to Georgia Tech, still can get to a bowl game with a win this week against Wake, but they fire one of my favorite coaches. And again, this is in my area up here, so I'm a little sad to see Dino Babers, who's a good man, a good coach. Just a bad situation at Syracuse in the ACC. 31-22, they lose. Dino will be looking for a job. Fresno State upset by New Mexico. Danny Gonzalez on the verge of losing his job at New Mexico beats Fresno State, who's still alive for the Mountain West. And San Jose State, also still alive in the Mountain West, beats San Diego State 24-13. So there's all the scores fit to be print. We'll look at the rankings now. Let me see what we got here. I may have missed a few comments as we rolled through that. What do we got here? Oh, I think I did that one. Mark Robertshaw, good to have you with us, Marky. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Hope to run into you in Amsterdam one of these days. We're over to Creekside on Sundays for the football games. If you're ever around, stop over and I'll buy you a beer. Perhaps Auburn was looking ahead to the Iron Bowl. They may have been. Listen, Auburn hasn't had a bad year in year one under Hugh Freeze, but they're still got a ways to go to be on Alabama's level. Now, this game, they're playing at home, Auburn. We've seen in this game anything can happen, and it could be an interesting game. What a futile effort against a weak. Listen, it's not really a weak New Mexico State team. They've got a chance to go to the Conference USA championship game, and they're 9-3 overall. And it's a decent football team. Not great, but you know. Tigers were minus 4,000. And what? Oh, they were 4,000. So they were 401 favorite in this game on the money line? That seems crazy to me. New Mexico State's not a bad football team. Man, I wish I hadn't. I didn't even check out DraftKings that morning. I looked for those little those nuggets, man, to throw a few bucks on. You bet 100. That's a $4,000 winner, guys. Good to see you on the show, Mark. Hope you're doing well. Say hi to the family for me and happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there tonight. And as I said, stop by some Sunday. We'll buy you a beer. We're going to have a TGI Sports Talk at some point here. After we get through the holidays, we'll have another happy hour. But now that I've moved up the road to the Half Moon, we'll probably do it up this way somewhere. I'll let everybody know. And Ed, you're welcome to come if you want to, fly into town. Saratoga, New York, Ed. Pop in. So anyway, the college football rankings, not a lot of change. Again, no losses. Let me pull this up this way so I can get a better view of this. Where are we? Once again, no losses in the top 12 this week. Actually, the top 15, no losses. We don't have a loss till you get down to 16. And I don't think they were 16 last week. They were in the top. Well, so in the top 10, they did lose. That's my bad. Or that would have been Oregon State. They did lose. So, but in the top 8, though, we haven't had any change, I don't think, since the very beginning of this poll. Nobody's lost. Georgia remains undefeated and at the top, 11-0. Ohio State, 11-0. Michigan, 11-0. That's going to resolve itself this week. Going to be very interesting to see what happens to the Big Ten runner-up. Now, this isn't losing. The problem here is it's not even so much, we talk about Georgia losing the SEC championship game and potentially still getting a bid. This isn't that, because the loser of this game doesn't even lose your conference championship game. You didn't get in the conference championship game. So this could be an elimination game, and I like Ohio State here. We'll go through the card here in a little bit. Washington leapfrogs Florida State. I talked about this very early, and guys may not have been here yet, but the committee has said point blank that this was not because of the Travis Jordan injury, but it is quite clear, and I don't know what you want to call them. It's not the bylaws of the committee, but the committee is able to take injury into consideration. So Florida State, even if they were to win out, beat their arch rival Florida this week, and then beat Louisville in the ACC championship game, still feasible, much tougher now, but still feasible, could be left out, undefeated. And maybe a one-loss team like Georgia, if they should lose the SEC championship game, gets in. I don't know if that's fair. If they lose, they should be out. I mean, they would be out anyway. But going undefeated, again, that LSU victory is a long time ago. The Clemson victory doesn't look so good anymore. So, again, there's another one similar to Texas. Their resume looks worse and worse as we go on because some of the teams they beat, which they can't control, have not played well. So Oregon now is still in that 6th spot, Texas in the 7th spot, Alabama in the 8th spot. All of these teams, 1 to 8, still have a way to get to a path, I should say, to the 14 playoff. Nobody below them, Missouri, they blew their chance because they can't get to the SEC championship game. Louisville, I mean, theoretically, they could get a bit. A lot of stuff would have to happen in front of them. And I just don't think they've got any path to the playoff. That Pittsburgh loss was horrendous. This team should be sitting here undefeated right now and looking at a chance to play their way into the championship game. And then below there, you've got Penn State, Ole Miss. These choices aren't that big right now, but they will be big next year when we have 12 teams. And you'll have, I think the first year you're still going to have, I think you'll still have 6. So they may be amending it to 5 automatic bids, and then the 7 best, the next 7 best rated teams would get the at-large bids because of the Pac-12 situation. So these rankings will matter later on. Ole Miss is in that 12 spot, Oklahoma, LSU. So if this were to play out today, we'll take a look at that here in a little bit. Actually, let me take a look at it now. I believe somewhere I had something that spoke to this, and now I've lost it. So I guess we'll have to do it ourselves. So if this were next year, and again, we can't assume we're not gonna play the game where the teams have moved, to the new conferences already. That's just too much to take into consideration. The teams that would get a bye would be Georgia. Let's say Ohio State wins that. I'll give you that. Let me see about that. I see a comment from Ed. I want to comment on because he sees I'm wearing a U. You see I'm wearing a U Miami gear. Did Ohio State and Miami being a real contender after the 2002 title game? Well, I mean, the results say they have. Miami's problems are, a couple fold. They can't recruit the way that they used to, although they have one of the biggest NIL consortiums in the country. But they can't recruit for several reasons. The facilities there are not up to par with the rest of which the universities made a commitment when they hired Marco Cristobal to upgrade the football facilities. So that's underway to help recruit people. They don't keep people home. And the same things happen to Florida. It happened to Florida State. They're not able to keep the Florida kids home. It's a fertile Texas and Florida, the best recruiting grounds in the country. And they've not been able to keep kids home as they've gone to Georgia and Alabama and even to Mississippi and LSU. And even in Florida, the competition has gotten more stiff with UCF having some of the best football facilities in the country. So recruiting's been a problem. Coaching's been a problem, obviously. And the stadium, quite frankly, home games aren't home games for this team. They do not support this team. You hear as many visiting fans out there at Hard Rock. It's too far away, way out there in Dade County. It's too far away from the campus. This team had a huge advantage when they played in the Orange Bowl. Now, it was a dump and it was decrepit and it was in a bad part of town, but they need a stadium on or near campus. That's what they need. And they need a real home field advantage. And those are some of the things that have hurt Miami over the last few years or 2 decades, as Ed points out. So congratulations to Jim Tressel and Ohio State for ending. And by the way, it's not like Miami has had this historically great football program, right? They had a 20-year run, basically, from 80 to 2000. 82 to 81, 82 to 2002. That was it. We've had some good years in between. Mark Richt had a couple of good teams, and they faltered at the end. But this isn't like this isn't an Alabama. This isn't a Michigan or Ohio State. But they've been great for decade upon decade. They had a good 20-year run. That's about it. Just the hard facts, folks. As far as the 12-team playoff, so Georgia, I'm going to assume for the sake of this argument, Ohio State beats Michigan. They get a bye, or they'll get a bye, yes, because they're the top 4 ranked team. I'm going to say for the sake of this argument, Washington wins. So now you got the 4th team. If we say Georgia, Ohio State, Washington, gosh, I don't know how you keep Florida State out in this situation. Florida State moves back up, Michigan moves out. There's your 4 byes. You've also got Tulane getting we also have the Pac-12. Sorry, the Pac-12 would be Washington. Who's going to be the I got the Big 12. The Big 12. Texas is going to get, let's just say Texas wins. Texas would be the automatic winner for the Big 12, and they're going to be in. So now you got 6 teams. Tulane would get in as the top rated. Again, if they were to win out and win their championship, they'd be the top rated 6th conference. And even if we weren't counting the Pac-12 next year, if this was next year, Tulane would be in as well. The at-larges would go to Michigan, Oregon, Alabama, Missouri, Louisville, and Penn State. To John DeLon's argument that, this 12-team playoff is going to have all these 3-team losers, there's only, in this scenario, there's only going to be one one, 2, 3 teams, 4 teams with 2 losses. 2 losses. No 3 teams. So you got 8 teams with 1 or no losses. Stop with the 3 losses, or 3 loss teams are going to not dominate, but proliferate this 12-team tournament. That's not going to happen. Just not going to happen. I mean, could there be a weird year where a 3-loss team gets in? Yes, maybe even 2 in a weird year. But I can't see any more than 2 ever getting in, unless it's just been a really, really parity-driven season. Can't see it. What else did I want to get into here? I really don't like this Florida State situation. I really don't. I look at these top teams that all have a chance, and a lot of it's going to take care of itself, right? Washington, Oregon ought to take care of itself. One of those teams will likely get in as the Pac-12 champion in my mind. Georgia or Alabama will get in. Alabama would have to leap from 8, but I don't think you leave a one-loss Alabama SEC championship out of the 14 playoff. I don't see how you do it. I don't know that Georgia can get in as the second team in the SEC. I'm still not sure that Michigan or Ohio State can get in as a second team from the Big Ten this year. I mean, let's look at that. What are the options? You'd have to leave Oregon out, a one-loss Oregon. You're not leaving Washington out if they're undefeated. So if Oregon were to win, you'd have to leave a one-loss Oregon team out in order to put in, say, the Georgia loser. I'm okay with that. But you're going to have to leave Florida State out. Are you going to leave Florida State out because they lost their starting quarterback and put a one-loss Georgia team in that lost the SEC championship game? Or Michigan or Ohio State if they lose? Well, again, those teams won't. Here's the problem with Michigan and Ohio State. They won't even have played in the conference championship game. That's why it's so hard, and it's happened last year, that they got 2 bids. But it's hard to rationalize that. You can't leave a champion out, a Power 5 champion out, certainly not an undefeated one. And I don't think you can leave a one-loss champion out to put a team in that couldn't even reach their conference championship game, which is why teams are doing away with divisions in a lot of cases, right? So I don't know. There's a lot that can still happen here, and a lot of this will take care of itself over the next couple of weeks. We got rivalry week this week, championship week next week, Army Navy the week after that, which will determine nothing. Army Navy, I think, will be much more interesting this year than it's been in a while. These teams both seem to be on the come. And they might both have something to play for. His bowl bids could be on the Bill Pulver, good evening. Still out in California, are you? Sunny California, good place to be. As we had some snow here today. Bill would like me to be voted the commissioner of college football. Unfortunately, Bill, that would never happen, because I have a little bit of common sense, not a lot of smarts, but a little bit of common sense. And that's not something the NCAA is really used to dealing with. You know, the NCAA likes to either they do one of two things. They overreact immediately, or they don't react at all and drag your feet for years. So again, simple things like James Madison can't be in a postseason game in their conference or a bowl game or anything like it, because they have only been in FBS 1 for 2 years. And you have to sit out 2 years before you're eligible. Stupidest rule in the history of college football, which is saying a lot. I'm sorry. Just ridiculous. Oh, yeah. So, what else is going on around the world here? And by the way, you haven't spoken up. So we talked about the Heisman race, and dealing with the Heisman race again. I'll leave this up for a minute, Billy, just because I like it. Thank you for that, and it's great to have you with us tonight. And happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, by the way. If you'd pass that on, I appreciate it. So, Ed, I've talked a couple times about the Heisman. You said it's between Nix and Penix, which I think is fine. I think Daniels is in there. And again, I'm not happy with the way, not necessarily happy with the way things went down in that game last week. But again, I guess you could say the same thing about Oregon's game. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in college football. And if I'm picking, I don't like the quarterbacks on the next level, except maybe Drake May. I don't like Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix is going to be Mac Jones. I don't like Michael Penix. I like Drake May a little bit. I think the best player in college football, though, again, and he'll be the next best, Brock Bowers and Marvin Harrison will be better than any of these quarterbacks on the next level, except maybe Drake May. I'll go that far. So West Coast. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Good. Let the family know I'll eat some turkey. This will be my second Thanksgiving. We had an early Thanksgiving last Saturday because a lot of the family was going to be off with their significant others and things like that. So we had the kids and their significant others and our granddaughter and my dad, stepmom, and my mother-in-law all over for Thanksgiving last Saturday. My wife and I will spend a quiet dinner out and then come back and watch some football tomorrow. So we'll have some fun with that. Oops, got that up there. So where was I? I don't know what I was talking about. Oh, Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison, Brock Bauer will have the best careers on the next level. Marvin Harrison, I think, is the best player in college football. Not going to win the Heisman, most likely. Could get invited to the ceremony, depending on, it would probably be the three quarterbacks. But I think Marvin Harrison last week didn't show, sometimes because of the limitations of Ohio State's offense. And McCord, who's played better and gotten better, I think, as years gone on, but he hasn't gotten better in a sense like Carson Beck has gotten better, and certainly doesn't play at the level of some of these other quarterbacks. Imagine Marvin Harrison Jr. playing with Bo Nix or playing with Michael Penix or Drake May or Daniels in LSU. They'd be off the charts. You've seen some good wide receivers come out of Ohio State the last few years. Marvin Harrison is going to be the best of them in my mind. So just something to think about. Let's take I want to take a look around the conferences, which I promised to do, just to look at where we are as far as conference championship games and where we are. And some of it is set. Some of it's very, very murky, very murky. Tulane, the American Athletic Conference, the AAC, Tulane, SMU, and UTSA, Texas San Antonio, all 7-0. Two of them play each other this week. I believe it's Tulane and Texas San Antonio play each other, so that one will take care of itself. But SMU, who are they playing this week? Maybe they're playing Navy. We'll see it soon, but there's a chance still for a three-way tie. And you could see they have a weird rating system to rank the teams to see who would play. And I think the way it comes out right now is just like it's in the standings now. It's Tulane, SMU, and UTSA would be on the outside looking in if there's a three-way tie. That could change with the games that are played and, you know, what other teams on their schedule have done. There's a whole complex formula. But I think Tulane, I'm going to say Tulane with a 9-game winning streak, by the way. They're only lost to a really good Ole Miss team without their starting quarterback, Pratt. I think Tulane wins this game and in the process gets to the championship game. And I think they'll win it and get that New Year's Day bowl for the second year in a row. This is a good football team. Pratt's a good quarterback. And they almost beat that Ole Miss team. We might be looking at Tulane with a little Cincinnati argument near the top of these standings. A little tougher this time around with all these undefeated teams, and Cincinnati had it. But Tulane might have been in this conversation, but for that tough loss without Pratt against Ole Miss. So still some excitement to come in the AAC. In the SACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, we're set. It's going to be Florida State and Louisville. Louisville's had a really good season under their former quarterback from years ago, Jeff Brown. And Florida State, we talked about them last week with a big victory over a bad opponent and losing at the same time as they lost their starting quarterback, who's led them to some great heights here. He's going to miss the rest. His career is over, and they are going to be hurt by Jordan Travis not being part of this team when this committee starts to vote, if they should win out. They've still got to get by Florida this weekend, and then Louisville in the ACC championship game. Now, this still could work out to their favor. Washington moved ahead of them this week, but Michigan or Ohio State's going to lose. Washington could lose. If the Washington loses, Oregon's going to jump ahead of Florida State most likely. I'm not saying that's right. A one-loss championship team against an undefeated championship team. I think FSU's schedule matches up very well. Their resume matches up very well with Oregon's, and they would be undefeated. But we'll see what happens there. As far as other, I mean, you could still, NC State, North Carolina could still get decent bowl games. Georgia Tech's been a good story in the ACC this year, as they've really rebounded and played really good football this year. 5-3 in the conference, 6-5 overall. But from where they were here the last few years, this is a proud franchise program. And they've got themselves a big game in rivalry week against Georgia. They can this is their season. This is their bowl game. This is their championship game. Doubtful they're going to even in this game, but this is their chance to shock the world. And Clemson, by the way, is 4-4, 7-4 overall. The Big 12 is a mess. Nobody's locked it up. Even Texas at 7-1 has not locked up the championship game. And you got three teams in a logjam at 6-2: Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Kansas State, West Virginia, and Iowa State, and even Texas Tech, the way I read it, are still alive, they think. But it's such a complicated, convoluted tiebreaker system they have. And they could very well end up with a bunch of teams tied, or this could get very simple. I do know that if Oklahoma State wins and Texas wins this weekend, they're in the playoff. Not the playoff, sorry, the championship game for the Big 12. But again, Texas gets hurt with this one loss, even with their win over Alabama. It was so long ago. And the resume's gotten weaker because some of the teams we thought were great wins don't look as good right now. The loss to Oklahoma looks even worse after Oklahoma lost a couple of games in a row, and their defenses look really atrocious in doing it. They had very close wins with Kansas State, who's a good football team, but also with Kansas, with who else? TCU, with just last week with Iowa State, only a 10-point winner. This hurts their overall resume, and if they get into a one-on-one comparison, one-loss conference winner against one-loss conference winner, say Texas against Alabama, even with the win over Alabama, I think it's going to be easy or easier for the committee to consider jumping Alabama over Texas. The Big Ten, I mean, we aren't set because we got Ohio State, Michigan this week. Let's see what Ed's got to say here before I move on to his conference. 60 years ago today, JFK was assassinated, yes. That is a day that we should commemorate as well. Funny is a weird word to put right next to that, but funny that in 1960, Michigan went JFK and Ohio went to the Cheater Nixon. Times have flipped. Ed, you've got some good stuff. I don't know that when you can find a way, Ed, I got to tell you, I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed that you're able to use the commemoration of the 60th anniversary of JFK's assassination to the Michigan scandal today. That is a connection of all time. It's an all-time great connection. I'm just so impressed. And you've been such a great contributor to the shows recently. please make sure you're here every week because that is I don't even know. You left me speechless, which is hard to do. Thank you. Anyway, when we get to the Big Ten, obviously the big game this weekend against Ohio State and Michigan, and I am going to pick Ohio State to win this game. That great defense of Michigan notwithstanding. So all that remains, Iowa's wrapped up the West and will be waiting for the slaughter that's to come, whichever team they play in the Big Ten championship game. Penn State did a great job of folding against both Ohio State and Michigan, as always. And James Franklin can't get a signature win. But fortunately for James Franklin, there's no oil tycoons as alumni at Penn State to buy out that $70+ million buyout that he has. Maryland with a tough loss, by the way, last week against Michigan. Mike Locksley could be in trouble there. A lot more was expected of Maryland, not to compete for the Big Ten championship game, but to be better than 3-5 and tied with Rutgers in conference. So keep an eye on Mike Locksley. Iowa, Kirk Ferentz is safe for as long as he wants to be. His son Brian, however, is on his way out. As you know, Brian had a contract that said they needed to win 7 games, which they've done. They're 9-2, which is nothing to be ashamed of. But they need to average 25 points a game. And they've averaged, trying to do math in my head, they've averaged about 18 a game. And he was told 2 or 3 weeks ago, he will not be retained next year. So anyway, Ohio State, Michigan will line up to play for the right to kill Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. Conference USA, Liberty, I believe their first year in this league. Jamie Chadwell's first year at Liberty taking over for Hugh Freeze. Picks up right where Hugh Freeze left off. Hugh Freeze did a great job with his Liberty program as an independent. And now Jamie Chadwell's done a great job in year one. Probably going to match up against New Mexico State, which I mentioned earlier to Mark. Robert Shaw, not a bad football team. 6-1 in conference, 9-3 overall. And they or Jacksonville State will play Liberty in this championship game. And Liberty has moved into the top 25. They're 25th now in the poll. Still has a chance to earn that group of 5 New Year's Day bowl bid, which has still got some prominence, by the way. Some of these New Year's Day bowl games still have some prominence, and the playoff is not going to destroy that. The 12-team playoff is not going to destroy that. They're going to make use of those New Year's Day bowl games in the playoff system. Now, we don't need the 42 or 82, whatever it is, other bowl games. I mean, we don't need, that's 2/3 almost. Yeah. Almost 2/3 of the teams playing college football today make a bowl game. No need for it. The independents where there is no, let's see. Excuse me, there is no playoff or anything. It's Notre Dame is leading away to 8-3. They could play in a New Year's Day game, I suppose. Army still got a shot at a bowl game at 5-6, coming back very nicely the last month. And Jeff Monken getting himself an extension, as we mentioned. UMass and UConn are just awful. In the Mid-American Conference, which we talk about, the MAC is not playing like Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights. Tuesday and Wednesday anyway. Always a lot of fun. Toledo and Miami, Ohio have locked themselves in. Toledo is a pretty good football team. They got a 10-game winning streak that nobody talks about. They're 10-1. And I guess, depending on what happens elsewhere, still alive for that New Year's Day bowl game for the group of 5. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. We're going to look at the whole schedule this weekend here in a second. The Mountain West, again, still wide open. Vegas, I believe UNLV has secured one of the spots in the championship game. Air Force, who's lost 3 in a row now, 2 in the conference. Boise State and San Jose State all still alive going into this weekend with a chance to make it to that championship game. The Pac-12, Washington has wrapped up their spot. We've got Oregon playing Oregon State this week, Arizona playing Arizona State. If Oregon stumbles and Arizona wins, Arizona will be in the championship game. Oregon will, their playoff hopes will be up in flames. And again, USC, the biggest disappointment here. USC with a great win last week may have saved Chip Kelly's job as he went from a pariah to toast of the town in a week. But we'll see what happens here. I would expect Oregon to win a hard-fought battle with a really good Oregon State team this weekend, and we have a rematch of Washington-Oregon. I think that would really be exciting. I think championship weekend is really shaping up as an exciting game. By the way, I believe that game, Oregon and Oregon State, is Friday, so don't miss that. The Southeast Conference, again, Georgia and Alabama have wrapped that up. There's no way either one of them can lose. The winner of this will definitely, even with Alabama being 8 right now, I got to believe the winner of this, unless one of these teams stumbles this weekend, which I do not see happening. Alabama does have Auburn. Georgia does have Georgia Tech, 2 longtime rivalry games. They should get there undefeated in the conference. Alabama undefeated overall. Georgia undefeated overall. Well, I'm sorry, Alabama 1 loss overall. Georgia undefeated overall. I think Alabama gets in if they win the championship with 1 loss. Don't stumble against Auburn, though. Nick Saban, this might be one of Nick Saban's best coaching jobs this year, by the way. In the Sun Belt, we talked a lot about James Madison, ineligible for postseason, which is nonsense. That leaves Coastal Carolina, Appalachian State fighting for the spot in the East for the right to play Troy for the championship. Troy's had a pretty good season this year, 9-2 overall, 8-game win streak for Troy. Coastal Carolina coming off a loss to Army, and App State coming off a big win against James Madison. And there you have all your conferences in FBS 1. Now, let me take this moment before we go into this week's games to talk a little bit about, again, what I propose. Not me, Basement Bob. Don't sue me. The 16-team playoff. In a 16-team playoff, here's what we would potentially be looking at. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 conferences. 10 conference champions get in. 6 at-large teams get in. No buys, no anything. In this case, you'd be looking at the winner of the Atlantic Conference. Let's say it's Tulane. Just for argument's sake. Florida State in the ACC. Texas in the Big 12. Ohio State in the Big 10. Liberty in Conference USA. Toledo in the Mid-American Conference. UNLV in the Mountain West. Washington in the Pac-12. Georgia in the SEC. And because I want to say James Madison should be in there, James Madison in the Sun Belt, because next year they would be eligible. If we were doing a 16-team playoff, there's your conference winners. That leaves us with the next 6 best teams, which in this case would be Michigan, Oregon, Alabama, Missouri, Louisville, and Penn State. I'm sorry, Penn State and Ole Miss. And that would still give Oklahoma, LSU, Arizona, Oregon State, if they could move up this week. You still could have some movement in those 6 at-large teams, too. I love this concept, and I don't know why the committee didn't consider it. You'll always, every year, have the 4 best teams in. You'll be giving David a chance against Goliath, like the NCAA tournament in basketball. You'll get to see Liberty play. You'll get to see James Madison play the big boys who will never play them in the regular season. This is not in any way, shape, or form a participation trophy tournament, as some of our SEC elitists have been known to think. When you've got 10 conference champions playing off in this tournament, plus the other 6 best teams in the country. Most of them are going to come from the SEC and the Big Ten, by the way. Always going to come from Power 5 conferences. You're rarely going to have teams, again, with more than 2 losses. I shouldn't say that. You will, in these cases, have teams with more than 2 losses because if these mid-majors, for lack of a better term, were given the chance to play some of these better teams during the course of the year, they're going to lose some games out of conference. But you're still rewarding a conference winner. It's not a participation trophy thing. So we just need to stop that type of thinking. Guys, I'll take whatever topics you want to talk about. I'm going to go through this week's games quickly, the top 25 to start with, and see what other games maybe of interest are out there. With the holiday here, we have some really good games all weekend during the day and in the evening now. So we'll go through these games. And I hope I get a couple extra picks in the cigar box. So we're going to have to do some DraftKings this week. Ole Miss and Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. Mississippi State's a 10-point favorite. Be careful here with this 10 points here. I like Ole Miss to win this game, but be careful laying the 10. This might be a good over bet, 54.5. Tennessee will play Oklahoma on the road on Friday at 12 o'clock. TCU's not very good. I don't think 10 points and Oklahoma State is a bad bet, to be honest with you. Also on Friday at 12, Iowa will play Nebraska. Nebraska's a 2.5-point favorite. I like Matt Rule. I like what he's done here. Nebraska needs the game to get bowl eligible, and so does Mississippi State, by the way, and so does TCU. So that's something to think about during these games. They need the victory to get bowl eligible. Iowa really nothing to play for. They've wrapped up the West. This could be a spot where Nebraska gets a nice win as a 2.5-point favorite and gets bowl eligible in Matt Rule's first year. And I think that would be a good step in the right direction, especially when you consider all the hype that Deion's team and Colorado got. They're not going bowling, guys. Matt Rule was actually one of those losers to Colorado during all that hysteria during their 3-game winning streak to start. Matt Rule had a good chance to be the guy who's got his program a little bit firmer on the ground as this year's gone on. Tulane will play UTSA, as I said. That'll be on Friday. This is a great matchup, guys. Tulane's 3.5. I love Jeff Traylor in this UTSA game, but I really like Tulane. And if Pratt's healthy, I'm all over Tulane in this game. That'll get to your comments as soon as I get through the games till Saturday. and then we'll take a look. Missouri will play Arkansas. Sam Pittman just got extended. He'll keep his job at Arkansas. Maybe that stimulates this team. Missouri wants to cap off what's been a great season for them. A couple tough losses will keep them out of championship consideration. But it's a team still with a chance to go to a good bowl game. Maybe even the Sugar Bowl. Who knows? But they're a 9-point favorite on the road. Watch out for Arkansas keeping this close. But I'd like Missouri to win. Texas Tech and Texas, again, longtime rivalry from the old Southwest Conference, which will no longer be played as Texas heads to the SEC. Texas is a 14-point favorite. Texas badly needs some style points here. I think Texas routes Texas Tech here. Penn State and Michigan State, I'd stay away from this game. It's a 21-point spread for Penn State on the road. They're going to win the game. Oregon State at 8:30 Friday night on Fox. Great game. Stay up and watch this one. Oregon, a 14-point favorite. I got to like the points here. I think Oregon will win. Oregon State's played really good football this year. Tough loss last week. They still can be spoilers here. And this is another rivalry, longtime rivalry, that's going away after this year. Watch out for Oregon State. They've had a chip on their shoulder about this whole situation. And we'll see what they have in their pocket for Friday. Found my info on X and posted that JFK segment. Love this show. Thanks, Ed. I swear to God, anybody could tie these two things together. JFK assassination and the Michigan scandal. You're the best, bud. I'm glad you found. Please, I hope you're following me on Twitter. One thing I have trouble doing, I've got myself over 2,000 followers on Facebook. I can't get the Twitter thing going. I can't get the YouTube thing going. I got some good, the shows are all shared there. I just don't know how to share shows. I don't know how to build an audience on Twitter or YouTube. And so I've concentrated where I know how to do it. And that's here where, we're getting, my shows get, during the course of a week with all my shows, 4,000 or 5,000 views. I don't think that's bad. I'm not Joe Rogan, but, we're having some fun. Saturday, Notre Dame and Stanford. Stanford, they played better than we thought. Very weird, by the way. Even Dave Clawson at Wake Forest, the head coach at Wake Forest, Sam Hartman's former coach, thought it was a little weird, the ceremony they gave Sam Hartman at Notre Dame last Saturday. He's only been there for like an hour, and they give him a big going-away party. Very weird. The big game, Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan is a 3-point favorite at home. I love Ohio State. And I'll just say it in a couple words. Ryan Day's due. Kent McCord has played better. He's played mostly mistake-free football. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. shows up big against this really good Michigan defense. And I think Ohio State's improved defense keeps J.J. McCarthy and this running game in check. And I think it'll be an interesting game. Maybe one not to bet at all, but I like Ohio State plus 3 here. Kentucky and Louisville, game with important repercussions for Louisville. They need this win if they want to have a chance to somehow come from way outside for this playoff. Don't see how it can happen. But a good in-state rivalry. I won't be betting this game, but I like Louisville to probably cover here. Kentucky is kind of falling apart here after midseason, similar to last year. LSU and Texas A&M. Again, not that much to play for there. Daniel's probably looking to pad his stats for this Heisman Trophy, and they're very good. 3,500 yards passing, 36 touchdowns, 1,014 yards rushing, and 10 touchdowns. The numbers are probably better than either Bo Nix or are they? Where's Bo Nix? Where's Mr. Nix? How much time we got here? 10 minutes. Bo Nix, 3,500 yard passing, 35 touchdowns. He doesn't have the rushing stats that Daniels has. Is it all about stats, though, the Heisman? It shouldn't it be the best player? It shouldn't all be about just gaudy stats. And maybe that is the best player. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Alabama and Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Alabama 14 on the road. Auburn lost last week to, as we talked about a couple times, to New Mexico State last week. Hugh Freeze hasn't done a bad job. They're going to a bowl game. Could finish with an upset here at 500 in the SEC. Alabama's got everything to play for here. They should win this game handily. Arizona should handle Arizona State. This is one of the hottest teams in college football. Arizona. Jed Finch had done a great job here when he was on the verge of getting fired after his first 2 years at Arizona. This team has played some great football since about the latter part of September on. BYU at Oklahoma State. BYU gets bowl eligible with a win. Oklahoma State's played really good football, except for UCF a couple of weeks ago. That hurt them. That hurt Texas. Because Texas is their likely opponent in the Big 12 championship game, unless some crazy stuff happens this weekend. I like Oklahoma State here. Pretty big. Tennessee with Vanderbilt coming in. Tennessee should win. Big point spread, though, 27. Be careful. Liberty gets UTEP. Liberty, again, 16.5 on the road. UTEP not very good. Be careful. Liberty will win this game. Washington State. This is another rivalry game that's going to go away. Washington's a 16.5 point favorite. They need to win this game, but they don't need to really, I guess an impressive win would help them because they've struggled. In a lot of people's minds, they've struggled. They're 11-0. And you are what your record says you are, like Bill Parcells said. But I think Washington could use some style points over Washington State. Washington State looking to get bowl eligible. Not going to happen. They're not going to win this game, but they might keep it close as their season just imploded after September. Florida State and Florida. Again, Jordan Travis, I want to say that backwards all the time, is out. Their fifth-year senior quarterback will lead the way now and going forward. Florida, not a good year under Billy Napier. His job is on the line. They could get bowl eligible here with a win here. I do think Florida State has enough to win this game. The one I'm going to wonder about is whether they can beat Louisville in the ACC championship game. Georgia goes to Georgia Tech in a long-time rivalry game. Georgia Tech with a competitive year, but Georgia's just been firing on all cylinders. It's tough to cover this 24-point spread on the road, but again, Georgia should win this game fairly easily. South Carolina with another rivalry game against Clemson. Clemson's a 7.5 point favorite on the road. Watch out for South Carolina here. This is a dangerous spot for them. They will get bowl eligible with a win. Beating Clemson would be a little bit of a salve for the disappointing season they've had for the most part. Spencer Rattler's last game with SC, I believe, and I think they could pull off the upset here. So that's an upset special for you. Iowa State and Kansas State. I like Kansas State to win here. They played very well late in the season. I like them to beat Iowa State, and they still have a shot to get to the championship game if Oklahoma State falters. NC State with a good year, 8-3, 5-2 in the ACC, and North Carolina, who's imploded the second half of the season. They still have Drake May, and they're a 2.5 point favorite here. Be careful. NC State is a live underdog in this game. Any other games? Let's see. Let me go through FBS real quick. And by the way, Albany State is on a bye this week here locally. They are playing in their conference's championship tournament, which they were able to put one together. They're the 5th seed. and we'll be rooting them on next week. We'll talk more about them next week. This week, I don't have oh, we already got scores. Other games of note: Miami, Boston College. Miami 10.5 on the road. This Miami team has been so up and down. I can't lay 10.5 against even a bad Boston College team. Both these teams should go bowling. Memphis and Temple. Memphis still has something to play for. Toledo, Central Michigan. Central Michigan trying to get bowl eligible, and Toledo's got their championship game spot already. UT, we talked about UTSA and Tulane already. Don't care about that game. Don't care about that game. Air Force and Boise State. Important game. Air Force has gone in the tank. I backed them all year long. 3 in a row they've lost. They get Boise State at Boise State on the blue field. Both teams with a chance to get in that Mountain West championship game. Should be an interesting matchup there to keep an eye on. Who else we got here we like to look at? UConn and UMass playing each other this week. That ought to be a battle in futility, let me tell you. Pittsburgh plays Duke. Duke will they're already bowl eligible. They should get a win here. Houston and UCF. Tough first seasons in the Big 12 for both these teams. UCF does have a chance to get a bowl eligible with a win. I like UCF in this game. Navy and SMU. Navy, with Army coming up, needs one win out of those two games to get bowl eligible, most likely. SMU with a really good season, 9-2, 7-0. Their first, not their first year. This is their first year in the AC, I don't think. But anyway, they're in the mix. Texas A&M's first year. So they're still in the mix. So this should be an SMU victory. Who else do we like here? Wake Forest and Syracuse. Dino Babers fired rightfully or wrongfully. They haven't had a lot of success. He had one really good year. The last 2 years, he's gotten off to strong start. 6-0 last year, lost his last 6. 4-0 this year, and they've gone 1-6 since. Just too much for Dino to overcome. Really good person, good football coach. Sad to see him go. They can get bowl eligible this week as well with a win over Wake, who has not had a very good year this year. Both teams 1-6 in the ACC. What other games are we interested in here? Colorado goes to Utah. Utah should destroy them. Colorado is really limping to the finish line here. 4-7 after a 3-0 start. So they're 1-7 the last 2 months and 1-7 in the Pac-12. Bad. And we knew that. I thought this team could go 6-6. I said that after 3-0 start and all the hysteria, and nothing's changed my mind. Arizona State we talked about. Most of these other games we've talked about at some length. We're going to wrap it up here, guys. It's been a great show. Ed in Columbus, Bill Pulver, the rest of you guys that contributed, I do appreciate that as always. And your guys' participation in the show makes it go. Ed, you have been tremendous on the last few shows, Sunday and today. So thank you for that. Thank you for your patronage, if you will. Guys, Keith Engel, I'll be back here next week with the College Sports Huddle. Then we'll have we'll have some scheduling notes next week to talk about. I'll be on Friday morning with the Are You Serious show with the Mad New Yorker. No idea what we're going to talk about. It could be just a Black Friday free-for-all. Bring a topic and let's argue it out. And also, we'll see you Sunday with the Stream of Consciousness. Guys, have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on the flip side. Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talk.